Hi, I'm Anne-Marie from brambleberry.com and soapqueen.com. Thanks for joining me on today's episode of Soap Queen TV. I'm going to be showing you how to do this super cool crosshatch design in your cold process soap. It's inspired by the super squirty swirls recipe in my book, Soap Crafting. We'll be using Tutti Fruity Fragrance Oil from the Soapy Love line, available at brambleberry.com, to fragrance this batch. The batch really reminds me of cotton candy, so this fragrance matches with that happy feeling. This recipe features one of the beautiful non-bleeding colorants from brambleberry.com, Blue Raspberry Pigment. It makes a wonderful electric blue in melt and pour soap and a gorgeous ocean blue in cold process soap. A few other colorants have co-starring roles in this recipe: Aqua Pearl Mica, Titanium Dioxide, Ultramarine Pink Pigment, and Electric Bubblegum Pigment. Now, if you've never made cold process soap before, I need you to stop right here and watch the first 4 episodes of Soap Queen TV, where you'll learn basics like lye safety and how to make sure you don't hurt yourself making cold process soap. Or you can read the first few chapters of Soap Crafting to get your basic safety tips under your belt before attempting this advanced recipe. For this recipe, I wanted a formula that would give us a long time to work with it. So I've used oils such as avocado butter, canola oil, coconut oil, rice bran oil, and sweet almond oil. This is a palm-free recipe. This recipe uses these little nifty condiment bottles that you can get from brambleberry.com. But before we can use them, we just need to cut down to the very first notch on the tip. Before we get started, we need to disperse all of our colorants into oil to make sure there's no clumps. So disperse 1 teaspoon of each colorant into 1 tablespoon of sweet almond oil or avocado oil or another lightweight oil. Use a mini mixer or a small whisk to fully incorporate the color in. Now, make sure that you have stirred a little bit ahead of time, because if there's any color left on the surface of that oil, it just poofs out all over the place. Use that mini mixer to work out any clumps. Now, set the colorants aside until we're ready to use them. Because we're working with this nifty silicone mold from brambleberry.com that's specially reinforced on the sides to make sure that your loaves come out with straight lines, it's important to use sodium lactate. Sodium lactate is the sodium salt of lactic acid, and it's a common food preservative. In soap making, it helps your soap to release a full 3 to 4 days earlier than if you hadn't used it. If you don't use sodium lactate, your soap will come out fine. It'll just take maybe 7 to 8 days to unmold versus, say, 3 to 4 days. Before I add my sodium lactate into my lye water, I'm going to suit up for safety. I'm using these nifty soap making goggles, and I really like them because they have a rim around the inside here that will help to prevent any lye spatters or soap spatters from getting anywhere near my eyes. My eyes are pretty precious, and so I want to protect them. In addition to my goggles, of course, I'm wearing gloves to protect my delicate hands, long sleeves, long pants, and closed-toed shoes. And children and pets, definitely in the other room. Carefully mix your oils and lye water together by pouring down the shaft of the stick blender. I do this as another way to prevent air bubbles. Make sure you burp that stick blender. You don't want any excess air getting whipped into your soap. Stick blend in short bursts, just 10 to 20 seconds max. All you need is for this recipe to be slightly emulsified. A thin trace is just fine. Once the soap is just barely emulsified, split it between 6 condiment squirt bottles. You want these containers to be about equal, but it's okay to eyeball them. We're going to be doing our colorants first and then adding fragrance to each of these containers in the end. This cotton candy inspired soap uses 2 colors, just pink and teal the whole way through, but 3 different shades of each of those colors, a light, medium, and a dark. We're going to be doing our teal colors first. To make your light teal, add 1/8 teaspoon of dispersed Aqua Pearl Mica and 1/8 teaspoon of dispersed titanium dioxide. To your next container, make your medium teal by adding 1/4 teaspoon of dispersed Aqua Pearl Mica plus 1/8 teaspoon of dispersed blue raspberry pigment. For the dark teal, add 3/8 teaspoon dispersed blue raspberry pigment and 3/8 teaspoon dispersed Aqua Pearl Mica. Now we're going to work on our pinks. For the light pink, add 1/8 teaspoon dispersed Electric Bubblegum Pigment and 3/8 teaspoon dispersed titanium dioxide. For our medium pink, add 3/8 teaspoon dispersed ultramarine pink oxide and 1/4 teaspoon dispersed electric bubblegum pigment. For the dark pink, add 1 full teaspoon of dispersed ultramarine pink and 1/8 teaspoon of dispersed electric bubblegum pigment. Now, add your fragrance oil into each container, distributing out evenly. Whatever fragrance oil you use, even if you're not using Tutti Frutti fragrance oil from brambleberry.com, make sure it gives you at least 10 minutes to work with the entire recipe. Shake each bottle, making sure to keep that tip pointed firmly away from you. These little bottles have a tendency to spout once you take your finger off the tip. Now you can start laying down color. We're going with an interesting sort of ombre effect. For the first layer, use the darkest teal color and the lightest pink. Lay down in a cross-hatch pattern like this in your silicone mold. Now, if you're like me, you can get a little confused pretty easily. So while I'm getting started on this, I just keep turning the mold to try and keep my color pattern straight. And keep repeating this with the dark teal and the light pink until you've used up almost all of the color. You're going to use a little bit of the color at the end, so save just a little bit of each of these colors in their containers for the end. This trace is so thin, wow. For the second layer, you're going to use your medium teal and the medium pink. Follow the exact same design. Make sure your teal is going in the same pattern as that dark teal was going to start with. And same with the medium pink. You'll notice my trace is getting just a little bit thicker, so we're starting to build up some color on the sides. Just take your mold and gently tamp down. Just kind of bang it just lightly. There we go. Everything settles out. Keep going on just a diagonal crosshatch pattern, alternating between the medium teal and the medium pink. Phew, we are in home stretch now. This last layer is our lightest teal color, but our darkest pink color. Keep going in that same diagonal crosshatch pattern, making sure the teal continues going the exact same way as the first of the teal layers. And go with the darkest pink now, and repeat until you've used up almost all of your colorant. You're going to use a little bit of this colorant at the very end to make a cool polka dot pattern on the top. Now that we're fully done with this, take your original first color that you poured, your dark teal and your light pink. These will be the thickest trace of all of the soaps. Get the tip of your bottle pretty close to the surface of the soap and then gently let some of that soap out. It should be mounding nicely. Continue alternating colors until you have adorable polka dot designs all over the surface of your soap. Now, everything is better with glitter. So, sprinkle some iridescent skin-safe glitter on the top of your soap. And there you have it. Once you finish your top design, it's time to insulate your soap. So take your soap and just either put it on a small heat blanket and keep it there for about 30 minutes on medium, or place it in a warm room so your soap does go through gel phase. Unmolding the soap is super easy, but it does take a few days. You're probably going to need your soap to sit in the mold for a good 5 to 7 days before you attempt unmolding. Pull gently away from the sides of the soap to break the airlock. If there's any tearing, stop immediately. You do not want to wreck your soap by pulling it out too early. Now, once the airlock is broken, take the mold and turn it over on its face like this. Keep pushing gently until the soap uses gravity to release. Once the soap is out of the mold, use your judgment to decide if you can cut it and how you can cut it. Use a non-serrated knife to cut the soap. You'll know if it's too soft if you start getting drag marks or sort of skid marks as you start cutting. If you cut the bars vertically, you get something that looks like the squirty swirls design. But since we took so much time and effort to lay down these perfect diagonal crosshatch lines, I'm going to show you how to cut the soap really cool in a horizontal way to make a nifty pattern. Measure your bar into 2 by 3 rectangles and then cut directly straight down. Turn the bar over on its side and cut down the center. Of course, you don't have to cut directly down the center. Cutting slightly to the left or to the right may reveal different color patterns. Here are some examples of ones we just cut. Each bar is a little different and extremely unique. Thanks for joining me on today's episode of Soap Queen TV. I hope you like your cotton candy inspired soap as much as I do. Until next time, happy soaping.